Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and yet more Velly drama going on these last 24 hours or so, but also just ahead of the World Championship, some pros exposing their peers for not putting in quite the time you might well expect them to put in going into the biggest event of the season. VOD review, getting on more after scrims, certainly been two key topics of discussion for apparently some top players here in the league. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thanks very much indeed for doing that one. So unless you guys have been living under a rock the last few days, you will of course have seen that Velly, the host of the CDL this whole season, resigned his position just a few days ago in rather bizarre circumstances. This might have all blown over rather quickly if it hadn't been for a Deserto article that came out, effectively painting Velly as the villain of the situation, the intoxicated altercation that went down. There were players like involved, and Crimsix had to come in there and save the day and bring everyone apart. Like that was kind of the implication, that other casters and pros had to kind of break up the fight that was going down. Now, it turns out really the incident seemed to be much less serious than was maybe initially portrayed, but still, someone I guess should have been deemed at fault or whatever. Velly ended up saying, look, I'm not happy with this physical confrontation, or like, you putting your hands on me, I'm just going to get out of this hostile environment and resign my position. Was that a premature move? Looking back at it, maybe that's what he thinks, maybe he doesn't. We'll dive into it here in a second, but it must be said, of course, we saw Velly's perspective on stream. He gives kind of his side of the argument, I suppose. We haven't really seen from the other guys that were meant to be involved. Blaze and Bryce are kind of the two names that keep getting brought up around this. We haven't really heard their perspective because, I'm sure the CDL and the casters really just want to kind of get over this if they can, right, and actually focus on the World Championship rather than this kind of shadow staying over chaps. Of course, we still need another host for the World Championship, of course, itself. Now, this I thought was interesting because if you guys remember the whole Benson situation, the Benson and Momo situation a couple of years ago, when Momo was let go and then Benson was let go around a similar time for kind of undisclosed reasons. And I wouldn't really have read too much into this tweet here from Benson when he says people never learn, just in case it hadn't been in a very similar time really to what's going on right now with Velly, and also the fact that Maven, Clint Evans, and Standy both liked this tweet. And that might indicate something for sure. And then Maven actually goes on to say this is what I feel bad for Bryce, right? Because people are saying, okay, Bryce is caster 3, Bryce is the guy who was actually like, attacking Velly or whatever. That is pretty much Velly's perspective, that caster 3, if it is Bryce, that's, what everyone's saying in the rumors. Might not be, of course, it's all speculation. We don't actually know. We weren't there in person to really say what was happening, but we've seen, Crimsix's witness statement, this type of stuff, and certain rumors that have gone around, so it's always difficult to actually tell exactly what happened in these situations, right? But because Velly's given his side of the argument and people want to defend him, now Bryce is the one catching a load of flack here, right? People is coming in the reply saying, how do you still have a job? Like, you should be fired, all this type of stuff. Now, Maven actually, of course, still associated with the league, comes back and defends Bryce and says, what, dude, Bryce is the man. Leave me out of this stuff. And goes on, and then this guy, Mango, says, you're defending a guy that put his hands on Velly, expected from you, or maybe you have no idea what you're talking about, says Maven, right? So, of course, look, Maven has a better idea as what happened here than we do sitting here at home, and really, well, we don't know what happens. A lot of the Bryce stuff is rumors and speculation, and people are jumping to conclusions about what happened here without really hearing the entire picture. So, I feel bad really for guys like Bryce who are getting all this flack in their replies, and Maven says, okay, like, he's going to come and defend him. And it is interesting, really, that we didn't really see anything from any of these casters with regard to Velly's tweet, right? When Velly resigned, we didn't see anyone in the replies, like the casting talent being like, okay, yeah, it's been great working with you, Velly, but best luck in the future, this type of stuff. We didn't really see any of that, to be honest. But yet we do have casters here coming out in defense of Bryce and saying that really Bryce, wasn't at fault for this situation. And especially interesting, I thought, was this from Blaze. So, of course, Blaze was the other guy. Apparently, caster 1 and 2 were Blaze and Velly, respectively. Caster 3 was Bryce. Rumors, speculation. That is the present rumor based on Crimsix's witness statement we'll see here in a second. Now, according to Crimsix, before we look at what Blaze had to say in detail, there were 3 casters involved. There was an argument between friends that went south, but not heavily south. I'd assume they're still cool with each other, right? So this sounds very much like the Blaze and Velly situation, known each other for a long time, 12 years that Velly said, but he didn't really indicate there was that much friction between the two of them. But apparently there was some sort of argument there. I've heard some rumors about what was actually causing this argument and what the initial discussion was. It's just such petty stuff that it's honestly incredible that even has become what it has become. But yeah, a third caster came in in trying to mediate it, and then that third caster, caster 3, was then being told to calm down, and actually, like, that caster, well, got escalated, and they actually got more annoyed. Caster 3 was doing a horrible job mediating. So apparently caster 3, rumoured to be Bryce, was the guy coming in to mediate a bit of an argument between Velly and Blaze. Didn't really turn out too well. Crimsix has to defuse the situation. So the theory would be, if it was Blaze and Bryce and Velly, the three of them that were involved, what does Blaze think about Bryce's actions in this situation? Now, Blaze tweets this out: "I swear, I do my best to be a good friend, be honest, and look out for my people always. As I get older, I'm learning there is a level of disrespect I won't tolerate anymore. Keep that negative energy over there." And then he goes to tweet out the following. Well, firstly, he changes his name for about 5 seconds to Caster2 on Twitter. So that's quite something, implying that, yes, he was the guy involved in the Velly situation as Caster2, with another guy being Caster3. And then he tweets this out very briefly before deleting it, at Priestahh, with a fist bump emoji, right? To kind of say, like, you know, respect, brother, like, I got your back on this. So I'm like, what is going on here, right? So Blaze is, like, subtweeting it. Maybe, like, Blaze is subtweeting it Velly for this one. Maybe he feels like Velly disrespected him, then Bryce had his back, and he's like, you know, wow, Bryce was backing me up there, and Velly was at fault. It's like, what is even going on here, guys? If we want to tweet this type of stuff, like, at least give us the whole story, you know what I mean? Rather than just doing these constant subtweets. Maven's defending Bryce, now Blaze is defending Bryce. It's like, you know, we get a different side of the story, right? Yesterday we saw Velly's perspective. Now, like, I'm sure that maybe Blaze and Maven are seeing what Velly had to say, and we're like, well, you know, that was his point of view. Maybe the reality from their perspective was slightly different, and Blaze wants to say something, but doesn't really want to say too much, just because then, you know, it gets a bit of friction with the CDL and the other casters. It's an absolute mess. I have no idea why this had to become such a big deal, because maybe it was all sparked really by that Deserto article, but I think even Crimsix was saying at the time, like, this incident was not as big of a deal as it could have been. They could have just, you know, at least wait till the next morning, because it seemed like from Velly's statement that after Caster 3 was putting his hands on Velly, the Velly was like, you know, I've had enough of this, I'm gonna resign. He was talking to a friend or something, they went for a walk, and he was like, yeah, I've had enough of this, I'm out here. If he'd have just maybe left it to the morning and then reconsidered, I don't know if he'd have had a different idea, just because he doesn't seem like he wants to be in that environment with Caster 3. But as Velly even said last night on Twitter, if the CDL came knocking, I'd answer the door with a smile. Like I said before, I've never had an issue with the company. COD and the crazy fans there have culture. I love it there. So he's basically saying that, like, look, if Caster 3 wasn't there anymore, I'd come back and still work for the CDL. So, like, you know, but surely they could have thought, okay, with one more event, we can, you know, maybe put this behind us for one weekend and make it work, right? You'd have thought maybe with a bit more discussion it could have happened. I don't know what happened there. Maybe it was, you know, crossed the line for Velly, which maybe is fair enough. Whatever the situation, he's gone. I really do kind of hope that this is the last we have to talk about it here, but I mean, yeah, just the incredible, like, subtweeting and stuff for some of the casters the last 24 hours just means we have to talk about it once again and present a different perspective, I suppose, than the ones we have seen so far. Let's actually talk about Champs though, right? So Champs is coming up. Of course, 8 teams are in attendance. 0 on London is one of them. The creme de la creme of Call of Duty events, most certainly. And as Illy says, make sure you get better today. Optic, of course, trying to improve as rapidly as they possibly can. Obviously had a lot to work on after Major 4. I'm sure they're trying to give it their all to make this happen. But many pros have been discussing the possibility of, well, some teams and some players are not taking things so seriously as they might do going into the biggest event of the year. It was kind of a big discussion last season. Why are no players hopping on and playing 8s and stuff like this going into some of the bigger events in the latter half of the season? And Spart seems to also believe that there's a similar problem this time around. Arcitys tweets this out yesterday. I miss the S&D community and tourneys. Always had something to watch and do. Now it's just play ranked every day, right? And that's the thing. S&D tourneys not really so much of a thing anymore. Now, as Alicat says, let's revive it. Need a good S&D game for that, I believe. Nah, people just need to actually play the game, says Spart. Instead of hoping for a good game every year, it's better to just find the good and fun in the game, and you do that by playing it. Pros make bank off playing it, and a good percentage of the league don't even get on after scrims every day. No excuses, in my opinion. So he tweeted this out last night. Of course, yes, he's not going into the World Championship, right? So he's probably talking about the state of affairs from maybe a couple of months ago when he was competing regularly and, like, playing in these matches that the pros really, they played the game for scrims and then didn't play any 8s, didn't play any S&D tournaments. They just got off for the day and called that a day, right? Didn't really want to play too much Vanguard. That's been kind of a key thing the last couple of seasons, that the players who really put in more time and are willing to go above and beyond than are just playing practice with scrims every day are going to be the players that rise to the fore. And it was even mentioned on the flank just a few days ago by Ben J and Asim that some top players apparently, and Zuma apparently knows who some of these players are not reviewing VOD, like effectively just watching back their games and trying to learn as much as they can, as much as they should be. And that's top players not doing this, not too far at all before the World Championship. So as this story changed going into Champs, maybe, maybe not. And Rambo says there are still a few things that Opti have got to work on as well.
To play anyone at any point on any map, because we've gotten back to our ground roots, and part of the focus in that is having the depth of the map pool again.
The talent in Call of Duty is so high. Everyone's got to be able to make calls. Everyone's got to be able to lead at some point.
Just
you know what I mean?
bro.
Yeah, but Chris,
the games have gotten more and more to where you don't even need someone doing that.
Just
like,
get trades.
Yeah, dead ass.
I
Go
vehemently
trade.
disagree with that, but what I will say is, bro, there are top teams in this game right now, and Tom knows as well as I do that like top players in the league are still not sitting there watching VOD.
There was even some further drama, of course, on this earlier this season, right, when Neptune left to New York or got dropped from New York, and he was basically saying that that team, they didn't really try and review VOD much, didn't really do much work on it, and then Paul was kind of, subtweeting him and saying, excited to play tomorrow, just got done with VOD review, as always, feeling good right now. So that was, obviously rather entertaining when Neptune did this tweet, and then this kind of stuff happened as a result. But yeah, going into champs, which players would you imagine are the kind of key culprits for this, right? Or whether you think that Spart's just talking about the state of affairs a month or so ago, and now every player is reviewing VOD to the maximum, right? But there are certain teams, I think, that do have a different work ethic to others. I think FaZe will be going absolutely balls to the wall at the moment, as I think will Toronto Ultra. Other teams maybe, may not be. I do know, just to touch on the Optic front, actually, because I remember, Rambo said, I think just after Major 4, that their kind of mindset and their practice wasn't as good when they got Illy back as they were expecting it to be. He was saying that, they couldn't really seem to get into the same groove of the grind that they had at the start of the season after Illy returned, which was a surprise to Rambo, and I imagine they've kind of got that under lock and key now going into champs. You'd imagine they would do. There's another week remaining here really of practice, especially before they fly out actually to the major itself. Probably less than a week now considering the flying time that they're going to have. So you'd imagine they are putting their all in, but it was interesting that Rambo did mention not long ago that at their mindset, the kind of grind that they were having wasn't quite where I think he felt like it needed to be if they actually wanted to have success. There are, of course, plenty of other teams going to this event, but Ben kind of specified top players in the way he was saying it, which makes me think that probably, players on a top 6 team, so Optic might be in the conversation. I think FaZe, they're always on the grind. New York are an interesting one, though, just because I think Drill will have them also, under, grinding all the time, as will Crimsix, I'm imagining, and, of course, Neptune had his words to say, but Paul X disagreed earlier this year. The other possibilities here might be London, Boston, maybe Thieves, right, depending, I think Toronto will be on the grind as well, and Seattle Surge, I think they've got a very robust coaching system behind them as well, so it's kind of tough to say which team right now wouldn't be putting in as much time as others, but especially lots of preparation for the first round games here are pretty crucial, right, because yeah, all these teams, we saw Optic, right, they're only scrimming FaZe, New York, London, and Surge to try and make sure that they can maximally prepare and give away nothing at all to the teams they might be playing in the first and second rounds here, but I'm sure these guys are preparing very much so indeed. This, by the way, is the entire bracket. Just wanted to mention here in terms of the date to these games, because Saturday is probably, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make a recap video on Saturday, because it's going to be a late one. I believe every day starts at 3 Eastern. I think it said that on the CDL Pick'em site or something, so on the Thursday there's 4 games, on the Friday I think there's 4 games as well, and then there's only 1 game on Sunday, right, which I think is probably okay, right? You just have the championship grand finals only on Sunday, which maybe makes sense, but the problem is that they have to really pack the rest of the games in on the Saturday, so there's 5 games on Saturday, you play the winners finals and 4 losers games, so Saturday is really the blockbuster day here of the World Championship, and then just the grand finals on Sunday, which is probably fine, but it does mean that it's going to be an incredibly late one on the Saturday. If there are any delays, it's probably going to finish 5 AM my time, 6 AM in mainland Europe. We'll see about that. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hitting the like button tells the YouTube gods that's a good video. That is like you should see it as well. And I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you guys as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.